if doesn't exist.
Tennis might be the coolest sport ever invented. And before you start calling me names in the comments, hear me out. Not because it is the most dangerous, not because it is the most painful, but because it might be the most mentally punishing. Let's go to Roland Garros 2004, where Guillermo Coria is the best clay court player on the planet. Right now, he is 2 sets up against Gaston Gaudio in the French Open final. He won the first set 6-love, he won the second 6-3, and it does not feel like a match anymore. It feels like domination. But then, his legs start to cramp, and the match flips entirely. He loses the third, then the fourth, but in the 5th set, he finds life again. And now he is serving for the championship at 5 games to 4. The title is 1 service game away. He gets to match point, drops it, gets to a second match point, drops that one too, and he loses the game. Then the match, and his first Grand Slam final becomes his last. He never reached another one. The man was 1 point away from the only thing he had ever wanted. And he had 2 bites of the apple. But both times, it vanished in front of 15,000 people, with no one out there to save him. And if you're thinking that is a rarity, a one-off, a freak occurrence, it is not. It happens again and again and again. 2025 Roland Garros final. Jannik Sinner has 3 championship points against Carlos Alcaraz. He loses all 3, fails to serve it out, then he loses the match. 2022 Australian Open final. Daniil Medvedev, 2 sets up, love 40 on Nadal's serve. 3 straight chances to take control of the third. He drops them all, then he loses in 5. 2019 Wimbledon final. Roger Federer, 2 championship points on his own serve. He loses both, then he loses the match. 2002 Australian Open final. Martina Hingis, a set and 4 love up. 4 match points, she blows them all. Then she loses the final. You get the point. 5 players, 5 different finals. Same unbearable outcome. You can have the trophy in your hands and watch it vanish. That is cruelty. So why does this keep happening? Why is a sport built so that the people who almost win are the ones who suffer the most? Because the cruelty of tennis is not really about pain. It is about something quieter. And to understand it, you have to start with a number that makes no sense. The 3 greatest male players to ever pick up a racket are Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. Between them, they won 66 major titles. They ran the sport for 20 straight years. But when you break it down, the dominance looks different. Across their entire careers, what percentage of points do you think they won? 80%? 70%? Try 54%. The most dominant players in tennis history won just more than half the points they ever played. That is it. 54 out of every 100. And that tiny edge was enough to win 80+% of their matches and own the sport for 2 decades. So sit with that for a second, because it cuts both ways. Win 54% of your points and you can become immortal. Win a couple fewer and the sport gets much crueler. The gap between greatest of all time and almost is about 2 points in 100. And once you understand that margin, you start to understand why every single thing about this sport is built to test you. Let's start with the most obvious one. You are alone. No teammates, no substitutions. And for most of tennis history, you were not even allowed to talk to your coach. So when it starts slipping away, when your serve abandons you, when your legs tighten, when your heart starts pumping, nobody is coming to save you. There is no bench to hide on, there is just you, a chair, and a towel you keep pretending to need, and a whole stadium watching you try to hold yourself together. And because you are alone, the blame has nowhere to go. Think about a striker who misses an open goal. It stings, but there were 10 other players on that pitch. A defender who switched off, a keeper who could have done more, a manager who chose the whole team. The loss gets spread out, the shame gets diluted. In tennis, there is no one to spread it to. If you win, it is because of you. If you lose, it's also because of you. That is the duality of tennis. The best part of the sport is also the worst. There is no one to share the credit with, but there is also no one to share the collapse with either. And that would already be cruel enough, if it was only mental. But it is not. Because tennis is not just mentally punishing, it is physically ridiculous. Tennis players have the longest season in sport. Australia in January, clay in Europe, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, America, Asia, back to Europe, Tour Finals, Davis Cup, and everything else in between. And then after the shortest little break imaginable, they are back in Australia doing it all again. 11 straight months of constant pressure. There is no real off-season, no proper reset. Just airports, hotels, practice courts, time zone changes, injuries, and another opponent standing across the net like none of that matters. And then the matches themselves can go forever. And in some tournaments, you have to back that up the next day. And tennis still asks you to make the right decision again and again. That is what makes the Coria final so brutal. Because it was not just pressure, his body was going, his legs were cramping, and the sport did not care. There was no teammate to cover for him, no substitution, and no clock to save him. Just Coria trying to find one more point in a body that had basically stopped listening. That is cruelty. Tennis can break you physically, then punish you mentally, then make the whole thing your fault. And here is where it gets genuinely cruel. Because after all of that, after the loneliness, after the pressure, after the body starts breaking down, you can still play almost perfectly and lose. Because of that 54%, because the margins are so stupidly small, 1 or 2 points can rewrite history. But it gets worse. In tennis, you could win more points than your opponent and still lose the match. Because the score resets. Every game starts at 0, every set starts at even, and a handful of points quietly count for 10 times more than all the others. The points at 30-all, at deuce, at break point, match point. So you can out-hit someone for 3 hours, win the rally count, win the highlight reel, win more total points, and still lose anyway. Welcome to a sport where winning more points can still mean you walk away holding the L. And then there is the part that makes all of this possible. There is no clock. In almost every major team sport, if you build a big enough lead, you can run the timeout, sit on the ball, kill the game, cruise to victory. Tennis will not let you coast. You have to win the last point. No matter how close you get, no matter how much suffering you've gone through, no matter how much the match feels like it should be already over, the final point is all that matters. Coria, championship point. Sinner, 3 championship points. Federer, 2 championship points. Every one of them was basically already there, and not one of them got to keep it. Because in tennis, if doesn't exist. Almost won and lost are the exact same thing. And the final cruelty is the quietest. A Grand Slam starts with 128 players. 127 of them leave because they lost. Almost everyone's tournament ends the same way, walking to the net after failure. And eventually, almost every career does too. Almost every legend this sport has ever produced walked off the court for the final time, having just lost. So, is tennis the cruelest sport? Well, it is definitely up there. But here is the strange part. The cruelty is also what makes it one of the most beautiful sports to watch and play. The loneliness, the blame, the physical punishment, the impossible margins, the fact that there is no clock, the fact that no matter how tired you are, no matter how close you were, no matter how much you deserved it, you still have to win that final point. That is brutality. But it is also what makes tennis feel different. There is no one to share the credit with, and nowhere to hide from failure. So when someone finally does hold that trophy up, they did not get carried there. Nobody covered for them. No clock saved them. They did it completely alone. And maybe that is the answer. Maybe tennis is cruel. Maybe it is honest. Maybe it is completely unfair at times. But regardless, that is what makes tennis, tennis. You alone, no teammate, no substitute, no clock, nowhere to hide, and everything to lose. So I'll leave it with you. Is tennis the cruelest sport ever invented? Or has something else got it trumped? Let me know in the comments, and if you're new here, subscribe.